Welcome back to another episode of Right Here in Mass. Joining me today is Anna Costa, the founder of ID Inc., which is an interior design studio that bridges the gap between high-end design and human-centered space. Anna holds a master's degree in organizational behavior, and her firm brings a research-driven, psychology-informed approach to both residential and commercial projects. Anna, welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I'm very excited to have you. And for our listeners, Anna's full bio can be found in our show notes. But Anna, I would love to start off the show by having you share more about yourself and what you do.
Well, I am an owner of an interior design firm, like you mentioned, and I concentrate on behavioral psychology and really the research-based driven kind of research to create spaces that really resonate with my clients. And it's really an interesting element because I got into this. I'm jumping in.
Yeah,
Sorry.
go for
Um,
it.
So I really got into it through kind of a back roads through the psychology element of design, and it made sense to me as I started really going through my master's that we all perceive our spaces through our senses, our five senses, and we see, we feel, we touch everything, and we perceive our surroundings. And so, how we perceive our surroundings can be influenced by the way we shape our surroundings. And
Mm.
so, that really is the core of my design firm, and it stands different from other design firms. And I think it's really, I think my clients really appreciate it and they really enjoy the final product.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to hear what sparked your interest in interior design. If it's something that you've always felt really passionate about, or if you had a previous career that led you down this path.
Oh gosh, actually, it's such a like I mentioned, it's a little backwards for me, but I always loved the element of art and design and spaces. I moved around a lot in my life. Um, I think 19 times I counted
Oh
once.
my gosh.
from from country to country, from states and cities. So I was very keen always on how my space is because you can't really put pictures and on walls or paint them because you're moving around a little bit. You haven't found your place. And so it was always kind of that relationship of culture about and myself and overall my surroundings really was kind of always part of what I was doing. I loved art and architecture. I was born in Russia, in St. Petersburg, where architecture is the front of the city. So
Mhm.
from the beginning, that was kind of part of me. And so when I got my degree, I went for psychology and design, thinking maybe something along the lines of child psychology and art therapy or something along. I couldn't quite
Yeah.
figure out how those two elements really fit into my life until I got to my master degree and I was getting an organizational behavior. And there was this point in time I was working for the university in
Mhm.
old buildings from like 1800s. But you know, they didn't care about lights in basements. And so I found myself working in an environment that didn't have natural light. It had people kind of zooming in and out. There was kind
Mm.
of a chaos around me. And I started feeling different. I started feeling kind of, I don't want to say depressed, but like I was feeling down. I couldn't figure out what was happening. And that led me to like really try different things and learn about it. And I found environmental psychology, which is the research of our space, our surroundings, and how we get affected by it. And that completely clicked. Everything clicked at that point. I'm like, yes, exactly. This makes total sense to me. And that was where I pivoted. I did decided that this is the direction I'm going to go, and did my thesis on creativity, productivity in office environment through
Oh.
spatial configuration. And that really led me into finding what I'm doing right now. I love research, I love psychology, and I think the way I help people is through creating their spaces for them that makes them feel great, motivated, and really pushes through the idea of how do I get to live my life to my best abilities.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. And I'm curious to hear that knowing that your focus is on like the environmental psychology and how spaces really make an effect on people's lives. I'm curious if feng shui is something that ever comes into play with you. Like I'm not too familiar with it, but I'm curious if that's something that ever pops up, knowing about the energy of a space and how certain things are positioned within a room and whatnot.
You know, it's so funny you mention it because a lot of people ask me the same exact question.
Yeah.
Um, how is feng shui playing into it? I think what my approach is really to understand ourselves, right?
Hmm.
Our senses, like I mentioned, we perceive our world through our senses. And so what we see is what we feel, or what we touch is what we feel. That's how we react to our surroundings.
Hmm.
And Feng Shui it's an ancient Asian kind of I don't call it science, but I guess it's a form of science that discusses energy flow and stuff. There's a lot of benefits there. I don't quite touch Feng Shui.
Hmm.
I consider really the concept of the way our brain functions when we see color. For instance, let me give you a little background. So, best way to understand this, let's go through a thought experiment for a second.
Hmm.
Imagine you're going to get your teeth cleaned. We're going to a dentist. You're sitting in the chair. There are a couple of things happening. Our senses are really working at that point, all of them. So we see bright lights in our face, right? We hear noises, sounds. We smell cleaning supplies because it has to be cleaned. And everything feels kind of like plasticky, right? It has to be. And so as we're feeling this through, we get a little anxious, right? We get a little nervous, even
Hmm.
though nothing is wrong, but we still have a kind of that pit in our stomach, like, oh, that is the physical reaction to our surrounding. The same way as let's go to an amazing spa. And imagine we're going to this world-renowned space. Um, I bet you the lights will be dimmed a little bit and there'll be natural music, something maybe waterfall sounds or something calm and relaxing, smell of lavender or something fresh. Um, the color's probably going to be a bit darker, natural wood, maybe
Hmm.
blues and greens, right? We already calmed down. Even now, as I'm speaking about it, you feel a little bit more relaxed just by thinking
Totally.
about it. And so that's how we react to our physical environment. So that's kind of a superpower that we can then implement in our space. Like we're
Hmm.
not going to be able to live in a spa, right? That's not realistic. But we can implement some of the pieces from it: colors, nature, smells, light, natural light. All of that elements actually affect our brain, affect our physiology and
Hmm.
psychology.
Yeah, that's interesting. And now that you say it, I think about certain things of like how I'm in certain spots that bring me happiness and certain spots, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
might bring anxiety. And it makes sense like people constantly use the term like, what's your happy place? Because it's true.
Exactly. Exactly. There's a lot of an extra layer there that's actually involves you mentioned your place, your happy place.
Hmm.
Well, our happy place is not just a beautiful, calm surrounding. We also have this element of our history, our personal background. So
Hmm.
when we go to an amazing hotel and we stay for 3 weeks, first couple of days, it's clean, it's beautiful, it smells amazing. Everybody, people clean for you. It's nice. But after 3 weeks, we get homesick. So why is that? It's because we don't own it. We don't have our personal belongings there from our history, from our experiences. So
Hmm.
we don't have pictures from the time I went on vacation in Peru, or we don't have that painting that your grandmother passed down generations, right? So there
Hmm.
is this element of what is it makes my place mine. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of thought and feelings that goes into really creating the perfect place for yourself.
Hmm.
And part of it is not only physiological, but then also the part of us that makes us us.
Hmm. So that's interesting. I'm curious to hear how that comes into play with commercial projects. If it's for like a company where it might not necessarily always be able to be as individualized as a residential space. I'm curious to hear how you focus on that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That so if you take the concept, the core concept of just understanding color, sound, um, light. That's number one. Number two, we talk about the culture of organization.
Mm-hmm.
What does the organization do, and how do they want the employees to act and behave in the space? So, if
Mm-hmm.
I had a project not too long ago where a client wanted to have more collaborative environment, and they wanted obviously people to produce and be productive, but they wanted a collaborative environment. They wanted the employees to be happy and wanted to come back to the office because right now we have our issue. People don't really want to go back to the office, right?
Yes,
After
definitely.
COVID. Yeah, exactly. So how do you get people motivated to come back and create an environment where people collaborate and start working on interesting projects, right?
Mhm.
So in that case, we really discussed the concept of the culture. We discussed how can we implement and design spaces, collaborative spaces, spaces that allows for individuals to sit down and really hone in on their work,
Mhm.
and then and spaces where you can I want to say interact in a way that's more low key and relaxed. So all of
Yeah.
that makes sense, right? All of it has to be woven in into the environment. And how do you do that in order for people to um, go through their day and do all of that and
Mhm.
be productive and happy in the work environment?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it also, it's so true. You mentioned how a lot of companies now are thinking about how they can bring people back to the office and have that collaborative space and whatnot. And I'm wondering what other challenges like your commercial clients might have with their space. Like if they're looking to achieve other specific goals with their employees, like wellness or anything like that. I'm curious to hear about some projects you worked on.
Yeah, so some of the corporate projects require I think the biggest problem really is people coming back to the office. That's one
Yeah.
of the biggest things. And how do you encourage people to come back? So either that's through having a chef on site every Friday,
Oh.
or yeah, or having the ability to. I know there was a project in New York. I didn't work on it, but I know that they created built in a whole gym in an office environment to give it a space where people couldn't go in and offload some of that energy and come back.
Hmm.
Um, others created others create like wellness areas, and like you mentioned, walking through a little park area, be able to meditate or some quiet space. A lot of that happening right now.
Hmm.
It's just a matter of how do we get back our people back into the office because that's where the true collaboration really works. Unfortunately, Zoom doesn't allow for one-on-one or group interaction the same way as we do when we are together in a group setting.
Right, absolutely. And one thing I'm wondering about in terms of like your expertise of what you'd recommend for this is I'm sure you come across clients both in residential and commercial who have a smaller space than what's ideal for what they're looking to achieve. And so I'd love to hear kind of your approach for things that might be a little bit trickier to work with or kind of like unique circumstances that you have to get past.
These projects are my favorite projects because you really have to think through every single inch in order to determine how it works. And it has to be multitask, it has to be multi-use in the space.
Hmm.
Um, I'm thinking of a project that very recent one bedroom condo. They're trying to redo their kitchen and living area. And how do
Hmm.
you create a multi-use space of working from home and in the same time having a kitchen and having a living room? It all falls into one area. And how do you switch from one to the other, right? When we get
Mm.
into work zone, we don't want to think about food and kitchen. We don't want to see kitchen in front of us. So how do we kind of manipulate the areas to move from one area to another and
Mm.
mentally, physically, and then at home afterwards, relaxation, right? It's one
Yeah.
of the bigger things is how do you maneuver yourself from one place to another? And in the small spaces, you really have to use cues, nonverbal cues like colors, ability to have storage solutions that when you open up, it's one type of space, you close it up, you move forward, and you have another. Maybe it's a beautiful painting that that you can open up and it becomes afterwards in a work environment,
Oh
a
yeah.
background to your Zoom calls, all of that kind of you have to really think through individual and their full day, how it
Mhm.
starts from the beginning, how they wake up and how they go to sleep, and how they're going to use the space from the moment they wake up, because that's important.
Yeah, yeah. And it sounds like what you're sharing here is that a big priority and theme for you is intention, like designing a
Yeah.
space with intention and knowing exactly what you're going to use it for because you can't exactly waste space. I mean, especially in the smaller spaces, you got to be very intentional about how you're using them.
I'm so happy you said intention because that is the word for my business. The word I have actually ID Inc. is intentional design
Oh, I love
for
it.
the yeah. So intention is the core of what I do. It's
Hmm.
a lot of designers, a lot of homeowners when they start thinking about, okay, we need to do this part because it's old and we need to redo it, and they don't really concentrate on like what is it I want. How do I want to live in this space? What is it that I want as an end result beyond just pretty things, right? And when I come in, we start with intention.
Yeah.
What is it? What is it that this space working? What works? What doesn't work in this space? How can we make sure that the space works for you on not just not just functionally, but also in the future? Like if we're talking about a kitchen set, I had a client that wanted to entertain, but their kitchen was closed off completely,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so she would say, "Oh, me and my husband, we bump into each other all the time. It doesn't work for us." But when we sat down and really talked about it, what is it? What is it you really want from this? What's not working? We just discovered that in actuality, she loves to entertain. She feels left out constantly from the living room and the dining room area where everybody coagulates.
Mm.
And so she becomes detached. So we've created a space that the kitchen itself flows into all the spaces, yet all the dirt, messy parts are kind of hidden away. So allows her to cook and clean and then entertain and then easier transition into the living room, dining room, sunroom, so that she is the center of the whole entire house.
Yeah, and I love what you just mentioned there about really getting to the core root of the problem. Like, what actually is it that's kind of stemming these or kind of encouraging these thoughts or feelings or problems, like really understanding what that lying reason is. And I think that's so great that you focus on that to then come up with a solution.
Absolutely. I think that was the pivot that I needed.
Hmm.
Um, I'll tell you a story about Oprah Winfrey.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was where I started my business in Massachusetts about 10 plus years. I won't mention how much. Uh, but I was taking every single project possible. In the beginning, you're just trying to build as much
Hmm.
as you can. And the concept that I'm talking about, behavioral psychology and really research-based design, sorry, mindfully, um, is it's not an easy to explain to any clients because in the end they want results and they don't need background on why things work one way, but they want to have a
Right.
beautiful space in the end. So I was kind of in the moment of taking all these projects and doing things as they come as quickly as possible. But then I had a chance to go to a conference with my husband, not related to interior design, but Oprah Winfrey was giving an amazing talk. And I got to listen to her and how she became who she is and how she became Oprah, an incredible voice. Um, and what she said really resonated with me, and the word is intention. She told a story about her starting out. And in the beginning, she was working on a talk show. She was working, she knew what she wanted to ask her guests, and that was it. And it was good. But when she realized that the guests had also intentions, that they were coming on the show with an intention, with a reason to um, to to communicate a current something, whatever it is they were
Mhm.
communicating. As soon as she realized that the intention came from both ends, it wasn't just her. It was it was her clients, her the people were coming in as well. That changed everything for her, and I think for me that changed as well. As soon as I realized that it wasn't just my intention to create beautiful space and making it pretty for other people, and in the process make them feel good. But it was really the client that had to be the center. Also, I had to understand what is the core intention. And
Mhm.
sometimes you have to peel an onion to really
Yeah.
understand what it is that they really want, and then create what it is that they truly need.
Yeah, and that's a good point that you bring up too, is that both parties have intentions. And it's like I didn't even
Yeah,
really think about that till you mention it. And I'm like, that's so true that it's like not
yeah,
just one person who has an intention, but the other person that you're collaborating with or communicating with also has that as well.
exactly, exactly. And I think that's the key for me. That kind of answered my why, and understand why I'm doing this, because I want to help other people. I want to make sure that they live their best life in the space. And so for me, that was a pivotal moment for my
Hmm.
business for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to go back to what we were chatting about earlier
Yeah,
because I think it's such a relevant topic about commercial clients who are looking to design a space to bring their employees back into office. Because, like
yeah,
you said, that's such a big topic right now that a lot of companies are focusing
yeah.
on. And so this question might be a little bit general because, of course, I'm sure your advice would depend on the client and their industry and
Yeah.
whatnot. But for any company who wants to bring their employees back in person, what advice do you have for them of creating a space that will encourage that to happen? Like if there's certain elements they should include or anything that you think is truly important for them to know.
I think starting with reasons why we want them back. I think
Mm,
understanding, why do I need my employees back? Do I need them to produce? Do I need them to collaborate? Do I need them to just be physical bodies in the office? I really think that the first element is to understand what it is that I want, but then also understand what is it that my employees really need and want, and kind of try to meet that. I think once you get an idea of what it is that makes people want to come into the office, you'll see it's really collaboration. It's about human interaction. A lot of people during COVID time, and even after years later, kind of get stuck in this moment of being at home and going through their space and work. And there's this missing concept of human interaction that we're
mhm,
missing. And so, if you are kind of thinking through, how do I bring my people back, and how do I want people to really be successful and happy in my office, I would say understand what it is that people really need, but they're missing from their home environment, and then use that as a form to entice people to come back.
yeah, I think that's such a good point. And with that, do you see any trends right now that are really resonating with offices, or does it kind of vary depending on the company and their space?
Obviously, it's depending on the company and its space,
Hmm.
but I think that overall theme, you have people want experiences. Um, so experiences, you don't have to bring in a Michelin star chef to your office, but but you can do some things to create a kind of collaboration, or just camaraderie
Hmm.
between your employees, and I think it's beneficial anyhow for a better work environment, and creating a better spaces for people to be in. So it's just a matter of, to me, bringing experiences in, or offering experiences. Pickleball Sundays. I don't know, not Sundays, Tuesdays, not Sunday, Tuesday. Don't bother people on the weekends. Don't do that.
That's a really good point that you just brought up though about
Yeah.
experiences because it's true. It's like people want to go to things that they can enjoy and that might not necessarily feel like work all the time. And so I love that you shared that
Yeah.
advice because I think it will kind of encourage some employers who do want to bring their employees back into office some things to think about with making that transition.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, think about it. If people have to sit in the traffic now because traffic is crazy back in Massachusetts,
Yes, it
95 is
is.
crazy. So if you have to sit in traffic and you have to spend all this time coming into the office, make it worthwhile for them. Do
Hmm.
something fun, nice. It doesn't have to be expensive, but lunch on Wednesdays or, offer something. I think we're missing that. In the beginning, I would say in the 2000s and even in the 90s, you had that. People understood that in order to keep employees in the big corporations, you had to offer people, right? I was part of a
Yeah.
softball team one of the early on work when I worked. But I think that is an important thing that I think a lot of people are missing right now, and I think it has to come back a little bit.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And now I'd love to hear more about your career journey. I'm curious to hear if you instantly started your company upon getting your master's, or if you worked for another interior design firm before starting your own. Like, what was that like for you?
Well, so I finished my degree, and very shortly after that, we moved from New Jersey to Massachusetts for my
Mm,
husband's job. And so it was kind of just starting from scratch a little bit. So I did work for another company, staging spaces and
mhm,
working and really um, finding my own clients that came and found me through recommendations. Once the word got out, I just had the natural kind of inflow of customers, not crazy, but natural flow of customers. And once we started figuring it out really physically, if I set this up and I paint this color this way and I do this, how does that make people feel? And of course, we went, and then there was a transition of really developing um, the current methodology, and reading a lot of research papers.
mhm,
but naturally kind of it grew. I had a natural growth, and then
mhm,
once the I understood what it is that I wanted to do, and that was to help people. And I pivoted the way my marketing worked, and it just kind of went up. People got had my designs, really appreciated it, told their friends, and that kind of organic growth really happened. So were there difficulties? Of course,
yes.
but of course, but overall, I think I'm lucky because I get a chance to do something new every single project.
Mhm,
And I have amazing clients that understand what it is that I do and they want to do part of it. And I think the other thing I'll mention is that what was a growth from just conceptual, behavioral psychological elements to actual implementation and being a project manager and understanding, how construction works and time management and working with people in a group dynamic and having um, kind of creating a really amazing group for myself and a
mhm,
team of people that do incredible work. And that took some time to really find the right people that are incredible at their crafts and they know more than I in different fields. So together we come up with really incredible products and designs for our clients. But yeah, I think the biggest part is making sure that the conceptual design really becomes a reality. And that part actually takes more time than actual design work, because you have to nurture your team. You have to make sure that everybody understands everything. And I have to say, I work with a lot of immigrants, which uh, incredible craftsmen, and I'm super lucky with that.
I love that. I mean, especially like you shared, I mean, I think building relationships and having those people that you can rely on in business is huge. And so I think it's so great
Yes,
that you've cultivated that for your own business, is finding these other business owners or contractors or whoever it might be to come together for one common mission, which is to help bring your client's vision to life.
absolutely, absolutely. I think that's the majority of the work, project management slash interior designer. That's what it is really.
Totally. And I
Mhm.
think you mentioned that you started your business over 10 years ago. I'm curious to hear how it has changed throughout that time and also how it might continue to change in the future. If you have new exciting things that you're working on or anything like that that you could share.
Yeah, I it definitely changed, evolved. I think it evolves with every single client. It evolves. There are
Mm,
things that I learn legally about, contracts. I then um, things that I learn about taxes. There's all this element of business owning that cause you to kind of pause and learn about it as you go.
mhm.
So evolution really comes, and I'll continue evolving as I enter new phases of projects and different clients. I think so. For instance, I'll give you. I worked on a spa, and that understanding what the requirements from a spa point of view, it takes time to understand and create. I
Mhm.
worked on a photo studio. That's different because lighting is so important in the space, and
Mhm.
then conceptual darkness and light, and how it not only has to visually look beautiful, but in pictures it has to look beautiful.
Yeah.
So how does the lens perceive this to be? So every single project teaches me something. Ophthalmology offices, completely different space. I mean, the core elements remain the same, human nature, human evolution, human behavior. But then there is within that realm, there's all these different projects and different elements that I have not learned yet. So I definitely evolve with every single client that I have. And I love it. I love learning all about it and really providing them with an amazing outcome in the end, that they can really enjoy every single day. So that's that. But I've been recently trying to develop an interesting progression to the behavioral psychology element of design, and that's James Clear wrote the book Atomic Habits. I'm sure a
Yeah.
lot of listeners probably read that and know. But in his book, he kind of talks about, visually understanding our spaces and how they affect us physically. And he talks about, I think he gave an example of a cafeteria in a hospital, which just people that have not heard this, it's basically hospital did an experiment where they had sodas located next to the checkout lines. And a lot of doctors and people walk by and grab a soda and pay for it and go. So in order to the I guess, increase the flow of water intake, they switched out soda with water and wanted to see would people go search for the soda other places, or will they just take the water and go along that way. And what they found is that actual people would grab the water, the sales of water bottles went up way up, and it's because it's just in front of us, it's easy to get.
Mm.
Our brains, and we are so conditioned to get things that are easy for us.
Yeah.
So in that retrospect, creating a space that is allows you to really think through, don't have to really think through, but really just take and go and not think about it.
Mhm.
So I think that is what I'm really concentrating on and really thinking through how to create a space where you don't need to think consciously about what to do, but you are helping yourself by creating strategies so that when you do need to do something, it's an easy transition. Example for that is if I want to go work out early in the morning, 5 a.m., super early, half asleep, who wants to get up and go exercise? I don't know, but I mean, it's good for us. So how do I create a space how do I create a transition from bed to my door where I don't have to think about it? I can just take my clothes, brush my teeth, and get out as quickly as possible,
Mm.
because we only have about like a couple of seconds to make decisions. If we press that snooze button, we are staying in bed, we're not getting up.
Yeah.
So we only have so little to make a decision about something, and and our brains constantly want to make an easy decision, right? So how do we create an easy decision for ourselves? Is it putting a water out on a counter in the kitchen so to drink more water than hiding it in the refrigerator? Is it putting a bowl of fruit on my counter so that's the first thing I see? So I'm going to grab a piece of fruit versus chips. So I
Mm.
think that is what I'm really thinking through right now. Um, how to help the behavior of an individual to really affect who they want to be in the future.
Yeah, which is so interesting to think about. 'Cause like you said, there's so many things that come with habits that can really influence what we focus on, which is so really like eye-opening, I feel like, to think about and then incorporate. And so one
Yeah.
thing that I'm curious to hear too is that for anyone who's listening to this episode who is interested in starting a business involved in interior design, what advice would you have for them for getting started in the industry?
Oh gosh, I think you got to find yourself a mentor. I think
Mm,
you need other people to help you. Interior design it's such a visual space, right? Everybody has their own likes and dislikes. And a lot of people actually think that they know how to do interior design. And, with HGTV shows really allow push people into, oh, look, I can do this. But with AI now creating all these beautiful images online, it's almost feel like, yeah, I just need this picture and I can do it, right?
mhm,
Or but it takes a lot more. You have to understand codes. You have to understand what things cost. For instance, they AI may generate a really beautiful image with a backsplash that's Taj Mahal, which is a high-end marble. And so when you go in, you may not be able to afford this, or it may be too thick, there's so many elements here that involve in interior design beyond it looks beautiful, that's what I want.
mhm.
Um, so I would urge people to really learn about uh, the different crafts. If it's they into the kitchens, they want to go into the kitchen area. Really um, learn about it, research it, get yourself a mentor, talk to people. I think being open and communicating and going into a tile shop, discussing with an owner of a tile shop, tell me more about these tiles, which tiles are better, which one, why they work, why this doesn't work. I think knowledge is power,
Mhm.
and going in and asking questions from people that are really good at what they do is probably the number one thing I can say will benefit you in so many ways.
Great advice. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And now, a fun question that I always love to ask our guests is what are your favorite local businesses to support?
Oh gosh, there's so many good ones.
I know it's so hard to just pick a few.
I know. It's well, let me give you a top three. Can I do three?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. George Howell Coffee. Anybody that knows, best coffee is my favorite. I would drive half an hour just to grab coffee in the George Howell Coffee place. So good. And a great story also. So I urge people to really look into it. Then within my sphere, there is a Italian furniture store in Watertown called Italian Design Interiors.
Mhm.
Yeah, IDI. And they are so great at what they do. Their product is amazing. If you're looking for quality, and they're super nice. So I would say people looking for something special for their homes, definitely check them out. And my third favorite is a baby photographer, Kaufman Design. If anybody has a little baby, she makes the best photographs of this little munchkins. I'm so sad that my kids are much older and that I cannot use that, but I wish I did because they're like, I would frame that all over the house. It's so cute.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
Anna, this has been a really fun episode, and I've so enjoyed having you on the show to share everything you're doing and where your career has taken you. And I'd love to have you share with our listeners where they can find you online in case they'd like to reach out.
absolutely. You can reach me at anyacosta.com, Costa, Costa.com. That's my website. And my Instagram is Instagram slash Anya Costa Design. Would love to hear from you guys. And thank you so
Amazing.
much for having me. Thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun.
It was my pleasure. I will link to all those places in the show notes that way our listeners can easily click through and connect with you from there. But thanks again for coming on today's show.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.